can start, making marshmallows, whatever you do in a bonfire, and anyone who joins will join us. So actually, we three know each other, and Jenny, we don't know you, so maybe I'll let you start by presenting yourself if you wish.
Okay. Obviously, I'm in the UK, as I mentioned. I work as a management consultant. I've been interested in following the website of information overload or the email updates for quite a while, because I'm somebody that can get into that sort of paralysis by analysis in terms of burying myself with information quite readily. So I'm interested to just always hear and learn more about what you're doing.
Actually, we had two members in this team from the UK. We had Monica Seeley, and we had
yes.
And there's Mark Powell. There's Margie.
Hi, Margie.
Hi, Margie.
She's still mute.
She is mute and immobile. Oh, well. There you are.
Here I am. Hi, guys.
All right. So we have here Jenny, who is from the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Halfway to you guys. Everybody else there is from the States.
Jenny, nice to meet you. My name is Lori, and I am on the steering committee for IORG, and I just joined like a month or two ago. I'm curious, how did you hear about IORG?
Oh, crikey. I don't know if I can remember. It could be I picked it up from LinkedIn. Would it be featuring in LinkedIn?
We have our group in LinkedIn. We have
yes, it could be somebody recommended it there, or I'm quite a Googler. I may have come across you or come across an article that interested me. Not entirely sure, to be honest. That was a while back.
Is this your first interaction with IORG?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Oh, okay. Now you have to make a really good first impression then.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. Hello.
Who joined? Hedens who? Hey there.
Hi, Edens.
So actually, my first name is Sherry.
Okay.
That's the S part.
I got it.
I was going to say good morning, but I don't know where you are.
So I'm in Canada. I'm in Ontario, and I'm north of Toronto.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah.
Oh, Marty's joining.
Hi, Marty.
Hey, Marty.
Now I can say good morning.
Morning.
Hi.
Yep.
Sherry, is this your first time with IORG or?
It is actually. Mm-hmm.
How'd you hear about us?
Well, I've been following the emails for a while, so I don't know if I actually remember.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for being late.
Hi there.
Probably related
Jim.
to an email type blog, because that's sort of my area of expertise at work. So yeah, probably that.
And what brought you here today? Just out of curiosity.
Just curiosity. Use that word. Yeah. To meet some people, and I actually have a 11:30 meeting too, so it's kind of a conflict. But I thought, oh, I'll pop in and say hi and see if I can learn or contribute in the half hour. So
Very welcome.
Yeah,
Cool.
welcome.
We have Jerry. So explain to us where you're from.
I'm from Switzerland. The
All right.
name is originally a Czech name from the Czech Republic. So my parents came over from the Czech Republic in 1968 when the Russians came in. And now I'm working as a software engineer and agile coach. And I have an interest in information overload because we are trying to program a tool that helps us a little bit searching and searching for knowledge on the internet and acquiring knowledge without all the fuss, all the stuff you don't need. So actually, we try to filter out everything that is not information, that is not knowledge. So we filter search results from Google and other search engines to not get, for example, web shops. If you use any kind of keyword, you will just get knowledge results.
Oh.
And we try to filter also the page content, so you will not be distracted by ads and stuff like that. So you just get the pure text and the pure information, so you don't have to kind of look for that. We try also to minimize the clicks. So you just kind of have a hit list, and then on the right-hand side, you see directly the content of the page. So stuff like that. And then you can kind of just remember content that you are interested in, and without all the fuss. So I'm curious to see what is going on. I just kind of came across your website and your group. So I'm interested to see what it's all about, and maybe I get some ideas and maybe I can share some. So
Yeah, I'd be interested in what you said you're doing there, definitely. And by the way, if at any point you're at the right stage that you want to share it with the rest of the community, well, you can certainly write a blog post for the IORG website. Would be most
absolutely,
welcome.
yeah. Would that be, or a presentation or something? I can do that and share.
Same goes for everyone here.
Jim, I'm just curious, when you obtain the information that you want that's filtered down, do you do anything like add this into a knowledge repository for your firm, saying like, maybe here's the search question and here are the hit URLs, or if it's stored in your company's website, do you have something like a FAQ that's stored for future use to reduce others' search problems?
Yeah, for the moment, we are just, there's also a little bit of legal aspects to it. You cannot just kind of download anything, but you can download it for yourselves, right? So you can use the information for yourself. So we try to keep you have your own repository of knowledge, kind of, with downloaded documents. And we actually download everything that you try to remember. We keep that for you. And if you would be in a work group, that would be the future, is kind of to give pointers to other people that are interested in the same documents, and then share those, and being able to annotate documents across in a collaborative manner, right? So that you can share that with others. And we would then go on to optimize naturally the body of knowledge, kind of seeing what is really valuable knowledge. We have also the intention to think about indicating trustful information, and see and give kind of a hint, at least, where does the information come from? Is this a trustful source? And in what tendencies are there in that document? So we are analyzing also the document in the background, tagging it automatically, and trying to group the knowledge in a knowledge graph together. So
that's really fascinating, because that was one of the first things I was wondering when you were talking about your tool, like who decides what's information and what's not information, who decides what's credible information and what's not credible information. And
That's a very interesting and deep topic. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I could talk to you for hours about that. But just out of curiosity, like, how are you guys handling all of that?
No, we are just starting with the trust topic. So we are just, I have to do research myself with my colleagues, and yeah, we are currently thinking about, there are some known trusted sources, and you will have maybe references of trusted sources that are referenced in other documents, and they have to weight that, right? So based on the reputation of people that are writing, based on the publication they are publishing in, based on reviewed or non-reviewed documents, and all of those things. And surely there's also the time aspect, right? So the older the documents are, the older the knowledge is, the less dependable it is. And it can be also, I mean, for example, in the medical area, you have a different kind of time frames, right? So when you have quickly new information added in a very, I would say, daily, there is some new knowledge published in certain areas, right? And old information might not be up to date anymore. So you will have to have some kind of aging process in your repository, so that you would see that documents that are older than a specific time kind of tend to being maybe even forgotten at the end, if they are not really valuable, because maybe people don't reference them, whatever. I would even challenge us to create something like a forgetting function that actually kind of tries to really get rid of not so much used information anymore.
Wow, that's cool. Actually, of course, leaving the fact that you've just killed all the Greek philosophers in the Bible and so on.
No. I don't think there are. I think there are also categories, right, of information that are valuable in themselves, and I think even the user has to have the right to kind of like veto the forgetting process, right? So
no, sure, I'm just kidding.
However, sure, I killed the Bible. That would be
it reminds me of a lecture I once gave. They invited me some time ago, I know, 12 years ago maybe, to the University of San Diego, where they had a conference about how much information. They actually, turns out they had a project, a funded project that was funded by the hard disk manufacturers and such, to know how much information flows into American homes, which was many gigabytes, but of course, most of them were video and so on. And I gave them a lecture called All Megabytes Aren't Created Equal, where my intent was to show that the same amount of information can be worth a lot or very little, depending. And I tried to find as many possible factors, including, of course, age, but also cultural context, and what else was there? There was about 6 or 7 things that would affect it. There's redundancy, there's what would happen if it got lost, and so on. And in the end, I was saying, a single email of, I don't know, half a megabyte can be big overload, and Wikipedia, which is terabytes, is not overload, because it does depend on whether you're expected to read it or you're going looking for it, and so on. So, and that ties somehow into what you just said. So
yeah. There's many ramifications, I know, and many factors. Yeah.
I'm curious. This is Nina. So I'm curious. How are you differentiating between information and knowledge? Because this knowledge is actually assimilation of information with the prior information and all. So what exactly, because you are doing the automated way of, filtering out. So what actually this?
I think we try to a priori not judge on what the person really in the beginning sees, and we have to learn from what is valuable to people in general, and then I think we can just kind of make an assumption that there is some theoretical background, and I'm sure there is, but at the same time, I think that people make choices, right? So, and people have made choices in the last thousands of years, right? And having to factor that in, so how many people are citing, I think it's still about how many people see a certain type of information as credible, as kind of expanding the horizon, etc. And we have to follow that to a very big extent.
I think that could get dangerous though, right? Like we see what's happening on Facebook and other platforms. Like I was at Yahoo News until recently, and we really always have a debate about like need to know, want to know, you know, and anyway, I think there's a lot of subtleties.
Absolutely.
I just put a
political bias and things like that, or misinformation,
information bubbles, like bias bubbles, whatever they're called, all of that. And also, I mean, look, I'm really US centric, and I think that we're not educated. There's all issues with education and media literacy and information literacy and all of that comes into play. So I don't know. The Aspen Institute is doing a lot of work on this. I put a link into the chat, but it may help inform you as you're developing this product.
Yeah, sure.
Which is fascinating.
Always interested. Thanks very much.
I'm starting to get cynical that there's more misinformation than there is validated, truthful information these days.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm the first one to admit that.
Yeah.
And I noticed that. I think we know people, right, that kind of think they have the truth, and they have a very narrow horizon, and their information channels might be just social media and what is promoted there. So yeah, I'm absolutely
is your product targeted to specific subject domain, or it could be general purpose?
Actually, for the moment, it's really it should be general purpose for the moment.
Wow.
But on the other side, it's as a startup or as a small group of people that has an ideal, you know, you have to be able to finance that somehow. And it depends a little bit. We are talking with companies that want to kind of use that within their companies, but this is more like enterprise solution with maybe an access to the internet instead of just searching their own intranets. So this would be one area, you know, and it depends a little bit where the money comes from in the end. So it's still, and because being a startup, the risk is high, we fail, and yeah, it will end somewhere. So yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe our goals are too lofty, and then I hope not, but I'm still convinced that they are not. But you have to go for the long run and have the necessary resources, right?
It's a real problem that you're trying to solve. I hope it's not too lofty. Like I hope you guys succeed. What stage of development are you in?
We have a small prototype. We try to, in the typical agile fashion, we just kind of continue to evolve the platform. So it already exists. The problem is it doesn't have all the bells and whistles yet. We have the basic functionality. We can remember things. We can tag them automatically. What we don't still have is kind of do the very heavy lifting stuff, right? So like really like indicating trust in a document. This might have different stages, and we will have to put a little asterisk on it, not to being taken too seriously at the beginning, right? Because we don't have all the necessary hints yet, or didn't incorporate all the possible ways how to calculate a trust factor. Yeah. So yeah, so ongoing. in an early stage, but we have it. So I can maybe show you a little link at the end.
Sherry, I know you have 10 minutes left. I wondered, like, I don't know. I want to just make sure.
I was just gonna just make a comment about how money can buy us information, and how that'll be interesting to well, obviously be aware, but to hopefully not let it affect the information that
we hope, that we are idealists for the moment. So.
And we deal with, like, I'm in government, so we're just dealing with like trusted information sources. So when you were talking about that, that's really relevant for us. And, you know, when we're providing or making data, so now I'm talking data, but data available to the public, making sure that's a trusted source and then it's accurate and relevant and all the things that you were saying. Applies to data, applies to information, applies to knowledge. You know, it's just a matter of one's definition of when you kind of move from data to information to knowledge. So yeah, it's all relevant. I'm so interested in what you're doing too.
Yeah, more and more I'm hearing, I'm getting curious. Have you decided what to name this product?
Yeah, for the moment we have a little. I can just show you. It's it's still in this early stage that you can have a free account on it and just kind of experiment a little bit. I send you the link over. It's called You Know It, but it's more. It's not written in the English fashion, so it's just.
You know it. Interesting.
Here it is. Here it is. So there's a website you can kind of register freely. We try to make it because we are not living from advertisement, so we would have something like a subscription model for the moment, without being with an enterprise edition in the works as we kind of work it out with companies.
We'll look at it, definitely.
Good
luck with it, really.
Yeah.
It's good to see people making smart products, and it's good to see them able to get the permission to even do it, you know. It's not an easy process.
Yeah, that's usually we are kind of like earning our money with other work and then try to put that in there, right? So
imagine, yeah. By the way, someone mentioned people paying money for information. I'm curious how many people give up on looking for the free information online and start paying for whatever services curate and provide to them, hopefully better quality. You know, what's the threshold where somebody is so disgusted with the free stuff that they're willing to put a hand into their pocket? Don't have that information though. Of course, that threshold would be important to the providers of information for money. And they should know how to move it up and down based on what they're doing, what they're producing. So
even for journalism, it's like that, right? So usually I would kind of just subscribe to one paper, but oftentimes I'm not so much interested in all the information of that same paper. So I would actually be more interested in buying individual articles. Yeah, that might also be an extension to the platform, and maybe even a connection to publishing houses, right? So micro payments for stuff that just people are just interested in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or bundling, like Apple News is trying to do. Not that I am a fan, but or not a fan. I'm just saying, like, they're bundling, like you know, content companies are videos.
Well,
so paying a fee for multiple sources.
I'm saying that the thing is, you know, 100 years ago, your professor told you which books are good and you would go buy those books. Today, you do a Google search, you find 20 things about whatever it is, and you go into the first one and it has a paywall where you just go to the next one.
Exactly.
Unless you have other reasons at play, and understanding those reasons would be interesting.
I think the name of the company, I'll see if I can look it up while we're all connected, Explorium, if I'm not mistaken, but they essentially go out and they search for competitive information, ecological information, whatever it may be, and you pay for that service. And of course, that reduces the time you have to spend looking for different resources. And that would be one example of pay for. In addition, of course, companies for marketing purposes buy curated target list also. But I was thinking on some prior comments that there was one or two companies I recall, this maybe goes back about 15 years, where the DBA, the database administrator, would look to see what segments of the database have not been pinged, and they would seek who the owner is and go out to the owner and say, is this information that you want to retain? If you answer yes, we'll keep it. If you don't answer, you answer no, we will delete it. So there was an attempt to try and cleanse the decayed information. And also IBM just recently, maybe 2-3 days ago, sold their IBM Watson medical information component to a third party. And there may be, Jim, you were saying that currency is sometimes very difficult to keep things, say, set with the most important news when there's such a wide span of medical information. Maybe IBM just gave up and saw it was a good play to get some money and not have to deal with the medical area, which was really the first area that Watson was known for in that context. And I just come back to Nina's point about knowledge and information. Some people will distinguish information and knowledge and saying that knowledge is actionable history, not only information, but what types of experiences people have had related to that information that's task-oriented, whether or not that's something that's universally held, but at least there's some segment of people that feel that that's a distinction between knowledge and information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is. It actually helps us. Yeah, also. Yeah, I mean, we can just currently we are just accumulating information also in our tool. In the end, it's maybe the discussion with my peers and others about that will kind of create knowledge for everybody, for himself, right? I don't think that it's just out there. It's out there to grab, but in the end, you have to form it in your own head, right?
I think it's easy to create a knowledge bank when we have a focused question, but when we come as a general subject matter, it is such a wide range where you have to stop it, because it is kind of infinitely big area.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to grasp where to do.
Yeah.
And I like the concept of forgetting function, because our brain also works the same way.
Yeah, and we accumulate so much stuff that kind of rots somewhere or it's just hidden somewhere and then takes up space and for nothing, right? So it's kind of, it should be a natural process, right? To be able to forget.
Yep, our brain also does forget to make room for new stuff.
Yeah,
that's how brain work also.
That is really actionable and that we maybe need, maybe in different areas of our life, right? Or different periods of our life. We need different kinds of, we are interested in different areas and the other things are kind of going somewhere where we don't need them.
On one of the discussions around a new email protocol, back when people still had hopes that we can somehow break from the 60s technology. So one of the ideas was self-destructing emails, either specified by the sender or by the recipient and so on. Although it's getting more difficult because storage is, like Andy Grove used to say, 3 megabytes, free cycles, CPU cycles, and so on. Storage is so free that it doesn't pay to even press the delete button. Just let it rot there at the bottom of your Gmail, inbox. And many people keep thousands and thousands of messages in their inbox and don't even bother. And in principle, as long as they have a good search tool, they can instruct the search tool not to bring up older stuff or whatever. So you need maybe more focus than just the age. It's the age multiplied by something else that would modulate its relevance, I would say. Because just deleting stuff, we delete books, by the way, physical books. This is difficult. I mean, we're actually beginning to consider trashing the good old Britannica. Because, I got it on CD, I got Wikipedia, which is better, and so on. I just like the covers, which are kind of nice looking. But there's not enough room in the house for more books. I mean, we are bookworms, me and my wife. And every few years we have to go take a run through the books and somehow refine the collection, which is very painful, actually. Yeah. But there, it's not free. I mean, bookshelves are not free. So
actually, I'm thinking about the function to show it on the document, that it becomes less relevant by maybe coloring it differently or making it kind of become more yellow and yellow and yellow. And so that one can visually see that, right? So.
Although, so depends for whom. I mean, so my wife is a historian, and she works on original documents from around the 15th century, so the end of the Middle Ages and later. And so we get to travel to all these archives in Europe, and these archives have books that are like 5 centuries old on very old paper, written in ink with holes from worms and stuff. And they are extremely precious. I mean, they're very, very valuable to researchers today. Of course, there is a culling process because there's revolutions and wars and fires and so on. But those that remain are definitely valuable to the right kind of people, which goes back to what I said before. It depends on the context. Yeah. So it's not necessary. Maybe there's actually a value. So new stuff is valuable. Very old stuff is kind of vintage and valuable. And stuff in between is just crap. But who knows?
I don't think that we can kind of generalize, right? But yeah, in the end, we have to choose and make a good choice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it depends. I agree with you. It's hard to generalize. I do think there's a lot of questions about who's making the choices, and what guidelines they're using. I mean, that's a really good one.
I think it should be, when it's an automatic function, it should take into account how other people value that piece of knowledge, how you personally value that piece of knowledge, and how maybe humanity as a whole values that piece of knowledge. Might be 3 levels where that have an influence. It's not just the age. I'm absolutely with you. I think the age can give us just a hint. We should again look at the knowledge and maybe re-evaluate the document right after some time.
Actually, let me share with you the observation that there's going to be a huge black hole in information from this time, because all these documents I mentioned from 5 centuries ago, they're there. Now, all the stuff that people are doing now, there are letters and documents and contracts and so on. Now, all the emails and the TikToks and the Instagrams and the Facebook and all this stuff is probably not going to survive 20 years.
Absolutely.
Not 500 years. So the researchers of 5 centuries from now will have no idea how people live today. There will be absolutely no information. Which is disturbing, I would say.
When we look at the internet, how quickly information is there, and then it just happens in 10 years. I think more than half of all the documents are not there anymore. So it also might.
Number, by the way, is that an actual number from some?
No, I just made this up, but I did the research, and it is even worse. I have somewhere an article I can send you.
Once this lady comes to me, and she lived in a kibbutz in Israel, which is a community basically, and she was doing a project to digitize all the old photos, like 100-year-old photos that they had among all the old people living there. And I told her, I very much hope you're keeping the originals. She said, why is that important? I said, because 20 years from now, nobody will be able to read your disk.
Yeah.
The originals will survive. She didn't think about it.
Paper is longer lasting in the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or pergament or whatever it is.
Well, actually, you can do something about that if you're the, the Library of Congress or such. Then you must budget millions and millions every year to keep moving the digital stuff forward to the new formats and so on.
Yeah.
But other organizations don't have that kind of money.
Well, that may raise an interesting point, whether or not when you do a search, whether there would be a capability of putting some date. I haven't really looked at that within Google, so that maybe old information could be archived, and then you could state, I want to look at this time period or periods when you're doing your search. But who's going to pay for that gigantic, humongous archive of old stuff?
Yeah, there's the Internet Archive does have, the Wayback Machine, which has snapshots of like my modest, unimportant website going back years and years. It's quite cool, actually. So they must have a lot of storage. I'm not sure who funds it.
Storage is actually going down, storage cost. That's why the cloud is booming, because eventually, storage is, as technology is progressing. However, even that archiving thing, it's kind of mind-boggling to know that what is the criteria they are using to archive. I'm surely majority of this content will not be useful. So I don't know. Even so, that's interesting. Go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say that, the Library of Alexandria, one of the either true or legendary ends to it was that the Muslims conquered the place, and they came to the, I forget which caliph or something, the big leader there, and told him that, hey, there's this place here with all these zillions of scrolls and things in it. So what are we going to do about it? So he said, well, if they agree with the Quran, then we have the Quran already. If they disagree with the Quran, then we certainly should burn them. And they went and burned the whole thing down. Now, from his perspective, that was a good decision. In his cultural context, it made sense. So it really depends on who's making the decision. There's no right or wrong, and there's no way to keep everything. So
that's a big philosophical domain you're opening, Nathan. Everything is splitting.
So much stuff is
scary.
popping up because there's the 50-year limit on various documents being kept secret in various governments and so on. And suddenly things pop up that would probably lead to civil wars if they came out 50 years earlier. And now the researchers have a field day about them. But some do and some don't, and some have disappeared in the meantime. It all varies. All the proceedings of the Spanish Inquisition trials in Sicily, which is one thing my wife was researching, are gone because the Sicilians at some point rebelled and they burned down all their archives. They didn't like the Spanish Inquisition, especially since it was a foreign rule kind of thing. However, my wife did find all the account books of the Inquisition, which is like many, many books in handwriting on paper of all the spending they did, and all the stuff they confiscated from all their victims, down to the last, knife and spoon in the house and where they were within the house. So that allows you a lot of information. In fact, my wife slaved on over this for some years, and she wrote a book about it. There's very interesting stuff in there. So the guys need a torturer in the village, so they have to pay him a salary. They have to buy him a donkey for transportation. They have to hire a carpenter to build the torture instrument, and you get an idea of how things worked. Not very pleasantly, perhaps, but and some people were. You can see how educated they were based on whether they had books in their houses and a lot of other stuff. So you have to go indirectly because the idiots went and burned the important stuff, which is the trial proceedings.
Yeah. I have just sent you a link to an article about the disappearing web. It's, I think, 30% in 2.5 years, something like that, of links are pointing to nowhere.
Yeah, we'll take a look.
In the chat, I have sent you the link. It references some study, so it's kind of in the end is, yeah.
Thank you.
We had that dilemma in our information overload research library because we had links rather than the actual documents, again, for regulatory purposes, and those links certainly do disappear.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wrote this book a few years ago, my catalog of all the information overload solutions out there. You know, the definitive guide. You can find it on my website. It's free now. But the point is, I spent a couple of years writing it and collecting 160 something solutions, including zillions of startups with products and things. Like, sure, if you were there, you would be in it. However, when I look at it now, I go to the electronic version and I click on things, you know, half of them are gone. The companies are gone.
I'm sure, yeah.
That's life.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do? So Jenny, you're keeping quiet. Tell us about what's going on.
I'm listening. I'm taking it all in. It's yeah, no, this...
You're welcome to do that.
Digesting, I am. Yeah. I think just, I mean, just what occurs to me, just from a very layman's point of view with it, is the extent to which, how do you discern what is good information ultimately when you've been presented with it? I, for example, I get very persuaded by presentation, which is nothing to do with content. You know, and it's, I don't know what part, you know, that has in once you've sort of whittled it down.
I think many people, I think they attach this to the person they hear it from. So
yes,
and so that's, it might be a credible person, it might be a person that is kind of close to them. So they kind of take it at just at face value and say, oh, it must be true because
yes,
this and that person did say that. It might be a well-known person, right? So
yes.
if Elon Musk says something, it must be true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, we know that, yeah, not all the people actually are going to research the facts. And I think this has also something to do. We become a little bit too much dependent on somebody else choosing for us.
Yes.
And the web of people that we can depend on is not really strong.
Do you believe that the part that the presentation of information has plays a part in how people select it?
I think so. I come a little bit from the corporate area, right? So yeah. I see lots of even at the CEO level doing some consulting sometimes there, and I see big consulting companies I'm not part of. They usually come in with lots of people and with lots of research assistants that do just very much internet research, just paste something together in a nice shiny presentation, and the CEO will buy that. Yeah, maybe because he paid lots of money for that presentation. Yeah, but
it's also gloss. You know, we're persuaded by websites. You know, we
also glossy websites, whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
I do think website. Sorry, Marty. I think I might have just.
Okay.
Just really quickly, I think that presentation matters, though, right? I mean, I think that is part of communication. It's how people absorb information and process it. So I think, you know, yes, you could. I too get seduced by fancy packaging, but it's, you know, it's definitely. Packaging is a big part of delivering information that people can actually.
Well, actually, there's a very nice book about PowerPoint by Edward Tufte, the guy that does graphic presentation.
Lines,
It's called the cognitive style of PowerPoint. And apart from being hilarious, it analyzes how the Space Shuttle Columbia crashed because the PowerPoint that was used to present to management the situation was so obfuscated that nobody could understand anything. And he has a good analysis, actually. I can tell you at one point, I grew so upset with the PowerPoints that were used in my organization that I wrote, they had all these slides with a zillion rectangles and cylinders representing servers connected to each other with arrows and so on. So I did a presentation I had to make, and I added one slide that was a complete spoof of that style. It had lots of rectangles and it meant absolutely nothing. And I sent it around to all the participants. Nobody noticed anything wrong. So
yeah, so if you get a complicated chart or something, it seems to be, yeah, this must be something very serious, right?
Yeah, they must know what they're talking about. Yeah,
absolutely.
You know, guys, at some point, a new training manager came into our plant here in Jerusalem at Intel, and she joined our staff, basically, which I was sitting on. And after a couple of weeks, she grabbed me and she says, "You guys are crazy. What you all do is you bring in PowerPoints and you read out what's written on the slides," which seemed to her completely absurd. And actually, that had an effect on me. From that day, I started making PowerPoint slides that were meant to illustrate and not to be read. So I would talk, and the slide would give background or drawings or whatever. And I do that probably to this day. But she had a point, and we being inside, nobody noticed if anything was wrong.
Yeah, no, it's good advice. Yeah.
And that's what we tell our students all the time. And I even assign lesser points if a student makes a presentation and reads off the slide, because as Nathan and others have said, it's really just a thought trigger, and you want to listen to the person to really hear the content. Going back, I've shared this before, in the 1970s, I wasn't the only person, but my definition of information was both the content and the presentation, because if you can't communicate it effectively, it's not information.
Yeah.
I was so proud of one VP in Intel in the States. I think he was British, actually, originally. Anyway, this guy has to come and present to us remotely or something. And I say, "Okay, so where's your PowerPoint file?" And he says, "I don't do PowerPoints." That was so cool. The only man I ever met who could say that, really, but he had a principle about it.
My internet's unstable, so you might have already said this, but doesn't Amazon not have any PowerPoints? They have this whole process where you have to write, there's like a writing template, but it's writing out your ideas and not creating PowerPoints. It's a big part of their culture. I don't remember the details.
Interesting.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Let me see if I can find something on it.
Hey,
I remember
one of those good cases, like that. There was the thing about either Hewlett or Packard, I forget which, that said if somebody wants to pitch anything to him that doesn't fit in half a page, then he won't listen to it because it's not worth listening to. That sort of position has an impact on an organization. So
I remember back in the 1990s, early 90s, I think it was some unit in the United States Air Force that banned PowerPoints for presentations. They were so upset with those.
Good. And there were those who tried to ban email, but that didn't work out. Ferrari at some point said 3 emails per day per employee or something like that.
I think somewhere in our discussion, I forgot exactly what the thread was, but we have in the past talked about information underload as well as information overload, the scarcity of information. Just wondering if that's something that IORG should encompass as well as the overload side.
Who is suffering from that?
There's a danger. So if it's overload, then it's your prerogative to ignore. But if it's an underload, that means hardly any information coming across. That's olden days of everything closed door things, that probably is not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
But problem with that thing is that having the bots, because nowadays everything becomes so automated that anything happens, like any event, for example, webinar or something. Each webinar generates at least 3 emails, because one is the prior day, they will remind you, next day, tomorrow is there's a webinar. The 1 hour before, again, they will remind you. So it's becoming multiple, factor they're adding.
Now, when it comes to less information, I like to think of the President of the United States, who is exposed to, should know about really more things than all of us, and no doubt doesn't spend half his day reading his email. So other people summarize and give him that little information that's important, which is a special situation. Although
not all of us can afford people like that, right? That summarize for you the thing you need to know.
Yeah, and what we were saying before, idea came and went, and they'll come back.
I forgot the name of the company in Evanston, Illinois, just outside Chicago, associated with Northwestern University, but they've been in business for 10 to 15 years, and they use AI to scan various news resources and extract what they feel are the important points and provide synopses to paid customers. But I'm sure they're not the only company that does that.
Yeah.
Reader's
We
Digest.
also do.
Yay, we've run out of information to share. What's going on?
That's because it's quality information.
Well, maybe, hopefully, yeah.
I actually like Marty's idea of information underload, and I was just kind of thinking it through. I'm just trying to recall conversations with people, and people just say, how come I didn't know that? Like, that's so important. How come that's not something I know? So how do you filter out or filter in, the things that are important that we don't always focus on, because we're overloaded with all the unimportant things that bombard us.
Yeah, in that case, Margie, you can always say, oh, I sent you the information, now you actually filtered out. Contrary to the other one, if you have not shared at all, it will generate different kind of dynamics, that you are filtering somebody out, which is dangerous.
It has actually a social
company.
Go on. Yeah, it has a social component to it, right? So you might not be able, or you will be punished if you filter out information that comes from specific people. And even if it's kind of not this important, maybe other information is much more important than that, but you kind of are, by the social factors, you are kind of, you have to acknowledge that not information, you have to take it in, and it just distracts you in the end. So how oftentimes I had to do with people and teams that kind of big boss comes in, tells them something completely irrelevant, and kind of hinders them, even, please do this and that for me. And they were actually working on something very important, right? But they had to take that in because of his position. So that's...
We have this term politically correct, and Jim, now you're sort of triggering in my mind socially correct, to make sure both from a social and a political standpoint, have we acknowledged individuals just so that they continue to be friends with us.
Yeah.
But your manager there is failing the employees and the organization, because the only job of the manager is to really remove obstacles from in front of the employees, because the manager, let's face it, doesn't produce anything. They only get the credit for what the employees do. And my model for that is the sport of curling, which at least in Canada, you know, right? Everybody knows what curling is?
In Switzerland, we are big in curling. Yeah.
Switzerland, you would do it.
You in the UK,
basically,
we've got it now. Yeah.
in Israel, I assure you, we don't have curling. However, I've seen it on TV, and there's these two guys with the little brushes that run in front of the whatever you call this stone. And the point is, those two guys with the brushes are like managers. They remove the obstacles so the stone can do its thing. That is the right model for a manager. And managers that instead do like the Dilbert manager, you know, and obstruct the employees from working, that is simply a shame, because there's little we can do about them. But
I think that the manager sees himself differently. He sees himself as the person that was kind of bringing the stone on its way.
Right.
And the other workers are the ones with the brushes, right? So.
Oh yeah, of course. Everybody thinks he's doing important work.
Absolutely.
Actually, the Dilbert for today was very good. Have you seen it?
No.
So the boss instructs Dilbert. He says, "Go and invent something awesome and patent it, and put me on the patent with you." So Dilbert says, "Why would I put you on my patent?" The boss says, "Because I instructed you to make the invention." Right? And then the boss says, "Okay, so now go and do the easy part." Yeah. This is something my kids gave me some years ago for my birthday, so I remember that.
Yeah.
The guy isn't running out of good ideas to make fun of corporate worlds. You know, it's been around since the 80s at least, right?
I think we have all these funny things because the corporate world isn't really changed, and that's kind of something that makes me a little bit wary that as an agile coach, I'm already for 20 years trying to change how we work in teams and etc. And when I look at the whole agile movement, I have to say we are not really much farther than we were 20 years ago. So.
Oh, my idea came back what I wanted to say before, which is you're looking at the value of the information as if we knew what the value is, people would act accordingly. Frankly, after the last couple of years, with all the fake stuff and so on, people would believe that they certainly believe the earth is flat, but they believe a lot of even stupider things. So there's no reason to suppose that if the good and bad information hit them in the face, they would know the difference. They would believe anything, which is a whole different problem, because now
you maybe cannot make it even a democratic process, because the big mass of people might not know what the real good information is.
Very disturbing days, what can I say?
And I think with the proliferation of social media, and that everybody can have a say in the internet, even if he doesn't know a thing about many things, doesn't make it easier, right? Everybody has the big megaphone that he can kind of shout out all the wrong ideas, and by shouting louder and having the better connections, he might even get followers that kind of believe in his idea, how wrong it ever is.
But the other problem is you'd expect people that if you came to someone and say that the earth is flat, even if it was very loud, they wouldn't believe it. And they do. So the credulity of people is what I'm most worried about. You can't rely on people to filter anything anymore. So who's going to do that? So it's going to be an interesting world. Regarding the internet, it did seem like a good idea at the time, I must say.
Yeah.
I gave lectures on how social media is so super great because they'll enhance democracy and enable people and so on. And they do, but there's so much more to it that we didn't really know that.
When you try to filter from a perspective of somebody that has power, like a government or so, then you will kind of immediately being decried as somebody that goes against democracy, right, or free speech or whatever. So I think we are a little bit in a conflict here that is not so easy to to resolve.
Yeah, by the way, I have the explanation for why people are doing all that, which is that according to scripture, man was created on Friday evening, right? When they were in a hurry to close the plant for the week. That's it.
Yep.
Okay, we can stay a few minutes longer, but I would like to point out to our visitors here that if you want to stay current on what's going on, you should get on the IORG mailing list, which is very non-spammy. Basically, we announce these events and we do an update once a month. So if you wish, then that's what you should do. Otherwise, you have to bump into us among all the zillion other things out there.
Yeah, already subscribed. Thank you.
Yeah,
And stay in touch any other way you want with the organization, with any of us. You know, we're out there and we're happy to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Also can join the LinkedIn IORG group.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice
Okay.
meeting you.
Yeah, it was nice. Here we have already evening, so I wish you a nice evening and a nice rest of the day.
Yes. Same
Well,
here. Yeah.
Okay.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good